When it comes to college level writing or college level oral presentations, the thesis statement is the Holy Grail. There are other parts, of course, to writing a good paper, delivering a good presentation, but if you don't get the thesis statement right, you really can't get the rest of it right. When we're talking about oral presentations, oftentimes the textbook will refer to a thesis statement as a central idea statement. We're talking about the same thing here. It's basically one sentence. We'll talk about whether you can use two, but basically one sentence that provides the foundation for everything, and it typically comes right at the end of your introduction. Again, whether it's a paper or a presentation, and you want to get to it fairly quickly, and you may want to repeat it at least once more, or at least versions of it at least once more elsewhere in the paper or presentation. So what follows here is based on a synthesis of information from 3 different textbooks and from Purdue's online writing lab. So Write What Matters, which is a college textbook on college composition. Exploring Public Speaking and Speechcraft are both college books on delivering oral presentations and preparing oral presentations. And Purdue's online writing lab is a really fantastic resource to go to. So, and I've used that here as well. I know it's not funny. It's kind of funny. I don't know. It is what it is. But point here is a thesis statement is somewhat of a heavy lift. You can't just, sort of come up with something and call it good. A well-done thesis statement probably has been revised multiple times. You may start with one as you begin to work on your paper or your presentation, and it may look very different by the time you're finished. A good thesis statement probably is going to be revised 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times. And the idea here is to get it essentially just right, and we're going to talk about what that means. So what is a thesis statement? What I'm about to go through here is a summary. You absolutely need to read the assigned reading in your textbook and view the assigned material in the coursework for additional information. This is a summary, but typically a thesis statement is one sentence. The outcome of that often is that students will write a really, really long sentence, 150-word sentence. Don't do that. If you can't get it into one sentence, you're probably trying to do too much with it, and I'm going to talk about that here in a moment. But you want to boil this down to its essence, its main ideas. You want to keep it to no more than 3 main points, and that's usually too many, usually 1 or 2. But sometimes you can get away with adding a 3rd main point in your thesis statement, and it will typically have a number of main qualities. So it has to be very specific. It has to get right to the heart of what you're writing about. You may make general statements elsewhere in your paper or in your presentation, but in your thesis statement, you're going to cut right to the chase. It needs to be very precise. So, 1, you need to get the topic specific. What exactly are you talking about? And 2, you want to be precise about what it is you're going to be saying about that topic. You want to write about something that is open to question. One thing that isn't really open to debate is the earth is round, essentially. And you don't want to write a paper arguing that the earth is flat. That's really not an arguable point. And if you think it is, then reach out to me and we can have that chat. But something that is open to question that you have done your research on, or that you will be doing your research on as part of preparing your paper or your presentation. And then it has to be something that you can make a case for, that you can, through your logic, your research, the construction of your paper or presentation, you can make your case. You can show why what you're saying is accurate. And again, in some cases you're just explaining something, you're doing an expository paper or an informative presentation. You still want to be able to demonstrate through good data, research, and other means what your main point is. You don't want to be shy about the position that you're taking. You don't want to be equivocal. In other words, you don't want to say, maybe this is true, maybe it's not. If you're writing a paper that's on something like that, you might need to change the topic where you can feel more confident in the position that you're taking or in the things that you're describing. So if it's something that you don't either fully understand or know about, or you can't learn about it to a point where you can be forceful and confident in your delivery or in your writing, pick another topic. I've copied here 3 examples from OWL of good basic thesis statements for a college course. And you'll see they're not exotic, they're not long, they're not using a lot of highfalutin academic terminology. They are intended to boil down the paper to its most basic elements. And they're a little bit different depending on the type of paper or the type of presentation you're doing. If you're doing an informative or explanatory or expository paper or presentation, it's going to be one thing. If you're doing a critical analysis or an analytical type paper, it's going to be a different thing. And if you're doing a persuasive or argumentative paper or presentation, then it's this third thing. I would encourage you to just pause the video here and read through these. And there are more examples on OWL and elsewhere that you can look at, and there are examples in the textbooks that you can look at. But be familiar with what it looks like, what a good thesis statement looks like. And of course, you're not going to copy it, you're not going to follow this precise example, but this gives you an idea of how to get there. Here's the cool thing about a thesis statement is it is worth the effort to get it right, because it is so essential to a good paper or a good presentation. You get that right, as I said before, you're about halfway there. And everything else flows out of that. So you write your introduction, or you deliver your introduction, you end it essentially with your thesis statement, and then you spend the rest of the paper or the rest of the presentation in support of the thesis statement. Whether you're making the defense of it or you're explaining it in more detail, you're providing your additional research, but it all flows out of that key piece when you get the fire lit and you've got the right thesis statement.